Boom! How's it going? Welcome aboard. It is I, TJ, from M5 Property Addicts, and welcome to our YouTube channel. And this is where we actually talk about anything and everything around real estate. But on a Saturday like this one, I bring you anything and everything around the books that I have personally read and books that have made me grow in the real estate space. And you could be thinking, wow, who is this guy? Well, my name is TJ, Taurai Jack. I am the owner of the company M5 Property Addicts. And over and above that, I write books. And this is my book that I've recently written. It is a book, a proper book. Yeah. It's called From Bad Debt to Property Mogul in 2 years. And if I'm not doing that, I am doing this what I'm doing with you now, right? In this video today, we are going to be talking about a certain book that I have read, and this book has changed my life. Okay, and this has also helped me in my real estate journey from when I started back in the days to where I am today, managing and owning more than 200 tenants now and 350 students, and doing a business in 4 cities, Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Cape Town. And in a nutshell, that's who we are. And if you are enjoying any of these contents that we predominantly post out on this YouTube page, and if it's helping you at all, I would like you to hit on the subscribe button so that we can get to as many people and talk about this thing about property whilst I am helping you. I help myself, and we can help others too. Okay, good. So I am a real teacher because I teach things that I do. I love that, and I talk about it all the time. And I'm an active investor because I've got that business there, M5 Property Addicts. And over and above that, I write the books, right? And I want to talk about the book that has made me to gain financial freedom. And this is the book that I'm going to talk to you about. Boom! The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Whoa, shame on you if you haven't read this book. So every Saturday, I'll be coming out through to you like today, and we'll be talking about a book. And I thought, before I introduce my book to you, it would be unfair of me to talk about the Granddad book that got me to where I am today. And I know that for a lot of people, this book here, they swear on this book. This book has helped them. If you've never read this book, I want you to go and get it. How do you get it? In the comments, there is a link. You can click on that link and you can literally buy this book now. But why would I want you to buy this book? This book here is The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The first time actually I read this book, but let me not say that the first time I read this book, because that was not my first time of interacting with the book. The first time ever, my wife bought the book for me, but I never read it. And it is a book that I took and then I put it on my shelf. Shame on you if you do have books like that. But hey, it does happen. I also have books that are still on the shelf, gaining dust. And the moment I read this book, my mind was opened. So I want to talk about this book here in terms of what are the things that I learned from this book. So my first copy, my wife bought it for me, and I put it in the cupboard. I never read it. 2 years went by, and I was online, and I saw something, an advert about Robert Kiyosaki, and I started following him, and I realized that I had seen this face before, but I wasn't so sure where, how, I couldn't just remember. And out of it, and then I went on, and I remembered I do have a book, and I couldn't find it, so I went to buy it. And when I went to buy it that evening on a Saturday, my wife then said to me, but I've bought this book for you before. And I said, it's the same book, right? Because I didn't want to get in trouble. But it was a different version, and my wife knew that. So I looked for the book. And when I looked for the book, eventually I did find it. And when I found it, ladies and gentlemen, I started reading it around about 7, 8-ish in the night. And in 7 hours, I was done on this book here. I was done. Why was I done? reading this book. It is just gripping. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you know me, I always say that. So, but what are the some of the things that I learned? It's not 7 things. I always want to talk about 5 things that I learned from a book. So I am going to talk to you about the 5 things that I learned. The first thing that I learned from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first thing ever I learned was that I actually realized that I was financially illiterate. I was financially illiterate. That's the first thing. I just didn't know much about finances. I didn't know anything about assets and liabilities. And growing up, actually, assets for me was things like furniture, things. Don't laugh. I know that some of you, yeah, right? I actually used to think that a car is an asset, right? But all of these things are not assets, right? They are liabilities. But hey, a car could be an asset in today's world because we now have the Ubers. But let me not confuse your brains. I was financially illiterate. I realized that when I read this book. Because in this book here, Robert, Uncle Bobby as I call him, he talks about assets and liabilities in the simplest manner. And I realized that, whoa, I know nothing. And at that particular time, I started now wanting to learn more. I actually wanted to learn more. That was the first thing. The second thing there that I also learned was that rich people, people that have money, like proper money, they don't work for money, right? When I was employed back in the days, I used to be a banker, and I used to exchange my time for employment. I used to exchange my time for the job. I used to exchange my time to get paid, right? So which means that I'm exchanging the time and the skill that I've got, and that's how I used to earn money. But I actually realized in this book that you actually don't need to do that, because rich people don't work for money, but when they are working for money, when they are wanting money, they don't work for money, they work for assets. And then the assets pays them. I know in your head right now, it's like what are you talking about? That is correct. The reality is that we have just been accustomed to think that going to work is the only way that we can make money. There's many ways of creating assets, creating systems. Like for instance, in my book here, this is a system that I've created. It's a book, I put in the effort once. Some of you who are authors, you'll understand this concept. So it's a book, I wrote it once, for the rest of my life, I'm going to be getting money, right? So it is money that's coming to me without me working for it. So the rich people, they drive to work for things like this. McDonald's, Nando's, all of those are systems that are put in place. So if you're buying into such kind of things, you get money for the rest of your life. It is assets. Rich people work for assets, not for money. They work for assets, and then the money comes from their assets. The third thing that I also learned was that I was oblivious to my tax bracket. I was oblivious to my tax bracket. I didn't know what I didn't know. So ladies and gentlemen, it's not the fact that I didn't know that I need to pay tax. I know that. It's not that on my payslip I never saw that I needed to pay tax and how much tax I knew. I knew that. But I was not aware that I can change that. Because once you start getting employed and you're now a young manager in the workplace and you're getting paid nicely and you fall within that bracket of the 40% where you're paying SARS, you're paying taxes, 40%, it is what it is. You don't look into like, how can I change this? No, you don't. You just continue with life, right? But in this book here, what it taught me was that it brought the awareness of I am leaving a lot of money to SARS. There is other ways. So my tax bracket was a lot. So for every million that I was working on, I'm just giving an example, right? For every million, so this is to intrigue your mind to go for you to go and check your tax bracket. it basically means that your tax bracket, whatever the bracket is, whether it's 20%, 40%, whatever it is, I think our highest now is 40%, on every 1 million that you are working for, the 400 of it is going into taxes. It's going back to the government. Right? Is there something wrong with doing that from a government perspective? Not really. There's nothing wrong with that because it helps to stimulate the economy and all of those things. But if I'm to pay less, right, I could do that. How? That's what this book taught me, right? It raised the awareness, and I started realizing that, you know, with the different structures, you can actually be able to pay less taxes. So you get to bank your own money for the money that you're working. So for instance, companies, okay. So the whole idea here, I got the awareness that I was paying a lot of money in taxes. The fourth thing that I learned was that there are so many different quadrants out there. And in this book here, Robert speaks about Uncle Bobby. He speaks about 4 quadrants. The first one is being an employee. Like we all know, we are all employees, right? And we get to exchange our time for money. And the second one is that you can be an X quadrant. You can be a small business. Who's a small business? People that own doctors, people who own small little practices and things like that. So if they don't work, those things don't produce money, right? So you're a mechanic or things like that. And then the other quadrant is a business. So you're a proper business. And this is where I enjoy, because if you're owning a big business, there's lots of things that you can write off in terms of taxes, things like that. But my happy place is being an investor, because as an investor, there is more that you can get from either taxes or even in returns, and you get other people to work for you. And then I realized that I actually, for the rest of my life, I don't want to be an employee. I realized that. But before that, that's the only thing that I knew. I knew employee and businesses. That's what I knew, right? And when I read this book, I actually realized that there is more quadrants out there. And subconsciously, I started making a decision of which quadrant do I want to be in. The fifth thing that I learned was that I actually learned that there is power in the payslip. There is power in the payslip. And there is power in utilizing a company. There is power in a payslip, which is 1. And 2, there is power in utilizing companies. As an employee, you get different tax rebates, tax incentives, and as a company, the same applies. You also get different tax brackets, tax incentives. So you need to look at what you want to do, right? And that's what I looked for, right? So those are the 5 things that I learned. So all the time I am going to be sharing with you. Every Saturday I'll coming out to you and say, what book did I read and what did I learn from that book? And don't go away yet, because we still need to go through into the next phase of this recording and talk about the 3 things that I applied. This was extremely difficult, but I wanted to talk about the first 3 things that I applied in the first year. Right. Number 1, I realized that I needed to understand my asset and liabilities. Me. What was my asset and liabilities? That's what I needed to understand. So I went in and I started learning about my own asset and liabilities. I went out into different online and I started looking out for different templates and things like that, how to calculate my assets and liabilities, how does the bank see me, and all of those things. And eventually I understood that I actually had very little assets. I had very little assets. And then that was the first thing that I applied. The second one that I applied was that I needed to understand my payslip. I needed to understand my payslip. So I applied the knowledge of the tax awareness that I got from here, and I started understanding how much tax is going away. And I went into my tax practitioner and I said to them at that particular time, why am I paying so much tax? How can I work around this in terms of paying less tax? And I realized that as an employee, there's very little that you can do. Because guess what happens? when you're an employee, the tax money is taken first, right? And then thereafter, you get what is remaining, and that's your salary. However, I also then learned that from a company perspective, you get to have all of your expenses, and then you get to pay tax on top of it. So I'm like, oh, so why then should I be an employee for the rest of my life? Maybe I need to grow companies so that I can have the companies that I'm looking for. But this, I was also aware that I don't want to be a small business, because as a small business, if ever I stop working, those businesses would stop. That was the second thing that I applied. So then I started learning from my payslip. And then the third thing that I then applied, I was very conscious. I was extremely conscious that I didn't want to be an employee. So I started looking at alternatives. And this book here speaks about real estate a lot. So I gravitated to real estate. I knew about real estate a little bit, right? And I'd grown up with property. So I kind of like understood it. And the third thing that I did, I started learning how best can I do property. And if you're one of those people who are wanting to learn about property, I say that you need to click in the link below, which talks about M5 Property Varsity, because we teach to people who are wanting to be successful in property. Hey, you could be asking yourself, then TJ, what has been the results? Oh, the results has been amazing. I've continued following, obviously, Uncle Bobby. I've read so many books of his. Like for instance here that we're going to touch in a couple of weeks to come. And there's so many books that I've read. But the results has been, I have now become more aware of my financial abilities and disabilities, things that I'm not able to do. And I'm consistently learning, about finances, financial literacy. What can I invest in? How can I make money? When that money comes through, what does it mean from a tax perspective? So I am aware and I know how to maneuver that. And the results has been, I left my job. The results have been, I've become an author. The results have been, I've got a solid business that I don't work in. M5 Property Addicts. I've got other people that are working in that business, right? And I've got properties that are giving me passive income, right? I get the passive income. So the results, there's plenty of them, but it all came from being aware, and it all came from this book here, right? I recommend you that you read this book here if you've never read it before. And if you don't have a copy and you want to get a copy, jump into the link below. You'll see that it will take you straight into Amazon, where you can buy the book and it can get delivered to you. You can also buy an audible book of it. Again, the link is in below. And I am hoping that your journey will be a much bigger success than it has been for me. And every Saturday, like it is, on here, we talk about a book that I have read that has helped me to grow where I am today. And obviously, it is not just about books, but this is a good stepping stone. And I am privileged to be talking about books that I've read and coming out through to you every Saturday. So my hope is that every Saturday we meet here, and don't forget to click the like button, number one, and then number two, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share these kind of things with other people, so that not only I can become knowledgeable, and not only you, but other people as well. My name is TJ Taurai Jack from M5 Property Addicts, representing M5 Property Varsity, the school of property successful people, and representing M5 Successful Friends. Like every Friday, we bring you a successful friend of M5, someone else who is doing property and how they're doing it. And signing out for now, it is I, TJ. God bless. Goodbye. Cheers.